Hi, my name is Sridhar Panad. I am one of the co-founders of Vizwara AI Labs. I'm making this video to share my journey through my undergraduate PhD and later my decision to get into entrepreneurship, leave the US, come back to India, and all of that. So I graduated in 2017 from IIT Madras. I was in a dual degree program in mechanical engineering. And after that, right after the graduation, I went to MIT for doing my PhD. So this was in Boston. I was there for almost five and a half years from 2017 to 2022. But unlike what most people do, instead of staying back in the US, working there or trying to be a professor or doing a postdoctorate or something like that, I decided to come back to India. And my decision was a little bit drastic in the sense that I booked my one-way ticket to India, which was just 2 days after my PhD thesis defense. Many of my friends and family considered this to be a bold step. Several people also told that this is a stupid step because they thought I'll come back to the US 1 or 2 months after reaching India because of the way things are. There were some people who I totally respected who mentioned that this is a risk that I'm taking, an unnecessary and untimely risk. And it's not a wise decision. You have to stay in the US, work for at least 2 to 3 years, and maybe try for green card, get the green card, and then with the green card you can leave so that you can come back anytime. So I got all of these maybe unsolicited advices during this decision making, but nevertheless I came back and I'm still in India. It's been almost 2 years. So there were a few things that led to this decision. So I just want to lay it down one by one what prompted me to make this decision and um, what are the good things that I'm experiencing in India compared to the US? What are some difficulties or challenges that I'm facing? If I could travel back in time, would I have made the same decision or not? How do my friends, family, all of them view it now? How do I view it now? Do I regret all of this? So I just wanted to cover a little bit about all of these experiences that I had so that if you are someone who's wondering whether you should set up a career outside India or within India, you can have a perspective from my experience. So first of all, I want to talk a little bit about what all opportunities were there in the US. And I just wanted to compare the reason why I made the decision by comparing it with I just want to compare it with the opportunities that I had at that moment. So but the lab in which I worked was a very entrepreneurship focused lab. We really worked on a lot of cutting edge technologies. There was a huge focus on starting companies based on the technology that we built and patented. I worked on a startup that spun out of our lab, helped raise almost $600,000 in various pitch competitions. So, and then my own project, which got published in Science Advances, it's one of the top journals in my field. And it was about cleaning solar panels using a no contact waterless technology. That technology, which later NASA also reached out to us to see how they can implement it on their lunar and Martian rovers to clean their solar panels. It had a lot of investor interest at that time. So people were interested to invest. And there was also a lot of discussions going on around how can we start the company and how can we build it in the US. At the same time, I was also working with two of my friends, Raj and Rajat, who are also the co-founders of Vizwara, in the education space, because that was a domain in which all of us had great mutual interest, probably because of the disproportionate amount of time that we have spent in the education domain. So we realized that what we really wanted to do, what will make us truly happy, is not staying in the US, but rather coming back to India. So, and also it made business sense because for education space, India is a good place. People care about education. There are a lot of things to be done. There are a lot of things that are highly conventional and things to change. And we were also doing things in AI, and India was also a great place to be in that domain because there are a lot of smart people here. You can build teams. You can pretty much operate in a bootstrap manner without fundraising. So all of these things were there. If we were operating in the US, we had to raise funds almost immediately. Otherwise, we can't even survive. The the rental expense as a PhD student in the 3 BHK apartment that we were living, the total expense for that entire apartment was maybe $3,500 or slightly more than that. That is more than 2.5 lakh rupees, Indian rupees. But the kind of apartment that we are living in right now, it's probably 1/7 or even 1/8 of that expense, but maybe 2x in terms of quality of life. So we realized that a lot of things are going to be unnecessarily expensive in the US if we were to build something bootstrap. Otherwise, we have to raise funds which will dilute whatever we are planning to do in terms of vision. So moving to India made a lot of sense from that point of view. And but we were always worried. What about the public infrastructure? What about the quality of life? What about people? Like, are people as smart as the kind of people you can find in the US? All these questions naturally came into my mind. So my experience has been the following. So I have always felt like the quality of life in private, so meaning quality of life inside the home, I personally felt like it's better in India. We can afford pretty much anything that we want to afford in the US. And when I say we, I simply mean I. Um, but the public life, the life outside the house, the quality of that is definitely much better in the US because of the superior public infrastructure. Roads are better. Public transportation is at least from what I have experienced, it's of better quality. I wouldn't say US has the best public transportation system. I'm not trying to say that, but in general, things are a little bit easy there. But privately, it is definitely better in India. You can get services, even if you want a small repair, if you don't know how to do it, or if you're not interested to do that, you can get a service for that in India, which is very difficult to get in the US. So, and for me, I have realized that 90% of my time I spend in my own private spaces, either inside the home or inside our own office. It's not in the public space. So for me personally, it makes the quality of my life better to be in India. And so this was one of the main things which I wanted to put out there. But I of course do miss some certain aspects about being in the US, like the beauty of some of the parks over there. If I wanted to go for a 5 a.m. jog, I can easily go for that. Here, I will probably not do that because there are often stray dogs. Street lights are not always probably functioning. The footpath is not well laid out. There could be potholes. Who knows? So there are such issues which because the infrastructure in the US is better, it's easier over there. So I of course do miss that part, but the best part of coming to India is that we are closer to family. There is a much more greater sense of belonging here. This sense of belonging I missed so much in the US. I was surrounded by some amazing people. There were great friends. People were super nice. All of that was there, but for some reason, it felt like it felt like this is not the place where I belong. There is another place where I truly belong, and that factor was also there, I think. But out of all of this, I would say the biggest factor that made me take the decision was, of course, having an amazing set of friends, support from very close family, and also the opportunity that India is presenting. So I do believe that India's GDP is going to grow significantly in the next 20 to 30 years, which will also coincide with the primary years of my career. So I just wanted to be in the forefront of that growth, that GDP growth. I want to contribute to that. I want to get the benefit of that growth. And I strongly believe that we can get that benefit only if we are here and only if we are trying to build something here. So this is one of the other bigger reasons to come back to India. People think that the opportunities are better in the US today, which may be true. You can make more money in the US today if you are working in a company. You can have better quality of life today. All of that is true. But I think things are going to be very much similar tomorrow, like tomorrow meaning after a few years. So I was also thinking from that point of view. I won't say this with great guarantee or anything, but this is more like a conviction. So that was also making it easier to take the decision. The other factor, as I mentioned, was the co-founders that I have, Raj and Rajat. They were also very much like-minded. So we used to often go for long walks from MIT to Harvard, during which we used to discuss like, hey, we should start something. If we are interested in entrepreneurship, we can start with any idea in a domain that we are equally interested in. And then we were discussing like, if not anything, at least it will become a good resume point. So this was our discussion initially. But then eventually we realized that if we think from the resume point perspective, whatever we do simply will remain as a resume point. It will never grow beyond that. So if things had to actually become something meaningful, we had to take some bold, usually difficult steps. So, and we had seen so many Indians, like even I still discuss with people in the US who say like they are not enjoying the work there. They want to return to India. They are definitely returning after 3 years, after 4 years. I have seen many people say that. I'm sure there are lakhs of Indians who say this, but they never execute that because once you are into that system, once you are into into the game of getting green card or getting your H1B after the OPT, once you're into that process, probably it's much more difficult to take decision. Once you have family, how do you come back? It's probably much more difficult. So I wanted to take the decision of coming back to India much before all of those things happened. So that was another reason. And I just want to spend some time discussing about the initial challenges that I faced here. So as part of our company, we run AI programs, which we implement at schools. We have a research division. So education and research were the two most important things that we were passionate about. So these are the two things on which we spend most of the time. So one thing I personally experienced when I came back was the kind of behavior from customers, whether it is school principals or teachers or anyone who is a customer. There was a general sense of rudeness. To a great extent, this was kind of like a reverse cultural phenomenon, right? Like you spend some time in a place and then when you come to another place, whatever you see, it's different. And then maybe some things you will perceive as rudeness, some things are actual rudeness, all that. So that was a bit different in the beginning. Then later it became better. So the quality of life improves. So if you suddenly make a transition from the US to India, it is probably going to decline in the beginning. I certainly did experience that, but then eventually it's going to improve. You will figure out the way things work. You will figure out the way people behave, and you will figure out how to, build your comfort. And then you also have the benefit of being closer to family. So I think generally for my mental well-being, being closer to the family, being closer to friends groups, and having a higher and better sense of belonging was very, very much important. So that really helped me to make myself feel at ease faster after returning to India. Another big aspect that was, I would say, not the best in at least the place where I stayed, Boston, was food and weather. I really like Indian food, although I have tried many other cuisines. I only prefer Indian food most of the times. Of course, I'm okay to try other things, but ultimately I need Indian food, good quality food. So maybe in California and all, it would be better, but in Boston that was not good. So I did not enjoy that part that much. The other thing was weather. It was very much in the extremes. So I would say that also I did not enjoy. Being too cold and being having too much snow is very depressing. I would love to see sun and greenery and a little bit of warmth. So that part I like in general in certain places in India. But I'm sure there are places with good weather in the US also. So this I'm just saying based on what I felt. I'm not generalizing between and comparing between two countries. So another thing that I have heard from many of my female friends, colleagues, and family who are females is that being a male, it is easier to make the decision to come back to India because there are a lot of things that you can get done at ease. People are generally more respectful to you as a male than as a female. You can go out, you can you have a life in public also. So, but as a female, it gives much more comfort if you are in a country with good public infrastructure and a much better much more well-behaved people around you. So this I have heard from many females. So I don't know um, how a Indian female who is currently in the US would perceive this idea of coming back to the US, whether they would like it as much. I don't know, but this is something that I have heard from several people. Uh, so maybe it's because uh, something that as a male I cannot perceive, experience on a day-to-day basis, but something that females can in India, where um, they are not necessarily treated as equally as their fellow males. So this is something that I think it's probably true, because the people who were saying this to me were saying in a serious way, like serious way from their life experience. So so I would like to think that it's probably true, but I cannot directly relate to, because I haven't lived that experience. Um, then there are a few other questions that people sometimes ask, like, do you regret coming back? If you had an opportunity to go back in time, would you take the same decision? I think I would have made the same decision. The main thing was the luck factor of finding the right people. If I were alone in this decision, maybe it would have been much more difficult. There was, of course, the support of my wife. There was support of my co-founders, who also immediately came back right after their PhD, who had great opportunities to work in very high-paying companies with 1.5 2 crores of salary. So, but they also took the same decision. So I remember there was one particular day I was walking into my lab during my PhD. So this was somewhere in the final year, where I had decided that I'm quitting my PhD, and I'm immediately coming back to India to build things here. So I particularly remember one day I was walking into the lab, and in my mind, this was the last day of mine in the lab. But then that did not happen. I ended up wrapping up the PhD rather than quitting it in the last moment. But what I'm saying is, the decision to come back to India was so strong that we just wanted to do it as soon as possible. So that's what I'm just trying to say. There are a lot of people who message me and who have talked to me after this, saying, like, this is also making them feel inspired to know that there are other people who are executing this decision, which is making them feel like they also want to do the same. And I feel like the times are changing. So in our parents' generation, there was definitely a rush to move to the US for better opportunities. There was really a migration in the living quality that really happened if we moved from India to the US maybe a generation ago. But in this generation, I don't think that is necessarily true. Of course, it depends on your personal financial state, but for many middle class, upper middle class Indians, I don't think there is a huge change in the quality of life if they are in the US versus in India. In fact, when you are in the US, you are probably sacrificing too much by staying away from the family. Some of my family members in the US, they haven't seen their very, very close family in India in like 5 years, 6 years. So there are such sacrifices that you have to make to access the higher quality of life that US can offer today. And many people cannot find a way out of it, because it's very, very difficult to say no to a huge sum of money that you will get when you are graduating from a good university. If you graduate with masters, you will definitely get a good package in a good city. You can afford an apartment. You can immediately buy a car. The society back in India will respect you a lot. That's what we usually see, right? At least the perceived respect is very high. So it's exceptionally difficult to make the decision. But still, I think the times are changing. I know a lot of people who are now who have now made the decision to come back to India. I know a lot of people who will definitely make that decision in the next 3 to 4 years because I know them very closely. I know how they are thinking about India as a place of opportunity rather than a place of pain. And I think in our time, unlike our parents' generation, a lot of things are going to change in India to make it into a much more attractive place for young people to come and start looking for opportunities, start businesses, or maybe lead, a major division of a big company, build products, export services or products outside India, contribute to GDP. And this is cumulatively going to happen. And the result of this is yet to be seen. We are yet to see what is going to happen. But I'm very optimistic with respect to this. My long-term vision of staying in India is I really have a dream of creating a lot of jobs here. By the time I'm 60 years old, if I could create around 50,000 or so jobs in different sectors, and if I can lead the development of certain services and certain products that can ultimately be exported to countries of high willingness to pay, it is directly contributing to our GDP, it's directly contributing to our employment. So that is something that will make me feel like I have done something truly meaningful in my life. And this sort of dream is something that makes me wake up every day with great enthusiasm here. So in one sense, I'm working a lot more harder now than I was working in my PhD. Usually we think of PhD as a very difficult thing. Of course, it's difficult. It's a lot of hard work. But when you have an even longer term vision, when you want to build something that has a lot of meaning to you, I think you will naturally end up working a lot more hard. So personally, to me and to many other people, like in Indian startup ecosystem, who have the vision of building something on their own and of world class quality, not of domestic quality, of world class quality. And they have the dream of selling to the entire world. For many people like that, they work very, very hard. So there are, I would say, hundreds of thousands of such Indians probably now who are shaping the future of the country. And it will be such a great loss not to be here. But there is one important question which I really like to address instead of skipping. Let's say you are working in a company as an employee, as a, let's say, software engineer or something like that. Is it better to be in India or is it better to be in the US? If you think for your whole life you will be working as an employee in a certain company, probably it's better financially to be in the US, not in India. I mean, of course, there are exceptions. I'm just saying on an average. But if you think you will, at some point, you will start something on your own, it's much more easier here. Firstly, it's like country is not going to throw you out. There are no visa restrictions or anything like that. So if you are an Indian, if you think at some point in your life you will build something on your own, this is a great place to start something bootstrap. So we work for building AI products. We also work in AI research. For both of this, if we were in the US, we would be spending maybe $500,000, $600,000 per year to maintain a team of good people to pay for expenses, living expenses and other expenses. But being in India, we can do the same thing at similar quality at a fraction of the cost. So to give an example, recently a couple of our paper got accepted into New Riff's workshop. It is something that we did not envision we could do outside of a lab, like coming all the way back to India in AI, doing something that can create an impact. We thought it required a lot of money, but it would have required a lot of money to sustain a team like that back in the US. For that reason, the raising funds would have been a necessity, like a mandatory thing, but that was not the case in India. We are completely bootstrapped and we are in total control. So that also, that feeling of control or independence, whether it is in the startup sense or whether it is in the general life sense, you don't have to worry about visa, green card, citizenship, all that. That makes life, one part of life, a lot more easy. Um, Now, if you what should you do? Like, does it make sense to go to the US or somewhere else to study for masters or PhD if you ultimately want to come back to India? If you are wondering something like that, I think the quality of education that top universities around the world has to offer is exceptionally high. You will meet very smart people from all over the world who will change the way you think, who will change the way you communicate, who will also change the way you dream. So I remember one of my friends at MIT. This was during the first or second week at MIT. He mentioned that he would like to build a company of $100 million or something like that. So at that point, it was like, I was thinking like, how do you even think of such things? How do you even dream that big? It was very surprising to me that someone could think something like that or dream something like that. Um, but once you spend around 4 or 5 years with people like that, you also start dreaming big. You also will feel like you want to build. You don't want to restrict your thoughts or your abilities into anything. So this kind of a transformation will only happen with other people who have superior quality of thoughts and great experiences and who are very smart and who are very driven. And where do you find such people? I'm sure such people exist in great companies, and such great people exist at great universities. And most of the top universities in the world are in the US. So if you happen to get the opportunity to spend time in such places, definitely do spend time. And if you wish to work the US, build a career there, of course, all power to you, go for it. But if you ever wish to come back to India, but if you are confused whether that decision makes sense or whether you will regret it or whether your quality of life is going to go down, at least from my experience, that is not going to happen. But it's depending on personal perspective, right? So people will, if you want people to perceive as someone who is working in the US, that perception will be lost the moment you come back to India. You probably may not be spending time in extremely good-looking public places because they are much more in the US than in India. All of these things will be there. You may experience micro rudeness on a daily basis, like people may not hold the doors for you. People may not say thank you or welcome. People may not say hi. People, there will be unhygienic things that you will find around on the roads. So those things you may experience, and you might wonder, hey, why did I come back? Was this the right decision? But if the goal that you have is beyond all of that, you will not regret the decision. So ultimately, it boils down to how you think things are going to happen for you. So yeah, I mean, if you wish to take that decision, go for it. I'm sure you will find 10 years down the line, you will find many more Indians, an order of magnitude more Indians taking that decision. I personally hate playing the green card or H1B visa game. It feels like so stupid to me. Not what others are doing, but for myself to play that game feels very, I don't know. I feel like I'm being treated as a second class citizen or something like that. So I don't like that feeling. So I did not want to play that game. So it in all kinds of senses, it made sense for me to be here in India where I am a citizen. So yeah, so these are the basic things. But if you have your own thoughts on this, you're more than welcome to take your call. More power to you.